Hey guys, how you doing today? Having a day off today. Not gonna lie, I've had a couple of drinks, so this might get weird. I'm definitely having like a depressed day too. Like, big depression day today for sure. Big depression day for sure. Always sucks when your days off are like that. You know, you gotta sack one to depression. I just think the millennials are over it, you know? Like, we're over it. We're over all of it. The the establishment has not yet come to terms with or has begun to accept how badly it's fucked up. I feel like the liberals are beginning to process it because they're beginning to actually feel like they have to do something, right? They have to do something. I think that the only thing worth paying any attention to is the basic income. Anything less than that, I think, is just a joke, not to be taken seriously. But the liberals have to do something. They have to promise something to someone. They have to do some kind of thing to garner some sort of support, and they know it. And the millennials are just over it. We're just like, okay, do something or go. Really. But the establishment hasn't quite put together exactly how badly they fucked up. Like, I don't trust, today, I'm talking to a guy who is got a master's in economics, and I don't think that guy understands the concept of economics. I feel like for the last 40 years, our institutions have been teaching people wrong. There's been this whole supply side economics thing that's dominated everything. The trickle down economics, so to speak. And we know it doesn't work. We know, like, when I saw that article come out of the Rand Institute, where they said they were shocked to see that there was this shift in that money, $2.5 trillion had been distributed to the wealthiest people, and they were shocked by this. And I'm like, then you're ignorant. Where have you been? And I'm starting to realize that there's lots of institutions that are like this, that they haven't come to terms with the fact that what they've been teaching for the last 40 years is a fraud, is wrong. Like, it's just fundamentally incorrect, right? Like, they don't quite, this whole idea of supply side economics, of giving money to institutions, and then those institutions will take care of the populace, instead of what is actually true, which is that you give money to the populace, and then the populace, if the populace supports the institutions, then the institutions may remain. That's the actual way that economics works, for the betterment of everyone. And that if you just jam institutions, you just force institutions down people's throat, then those institutions can act in all kinds of weird and stupid ways. They can withhold service. They can do all kinds of things that are not in the interests of the populace. But they're the ones that are getting the money. The people aren't. The people have to sell themselves to those institutions. And I can't believe that even that point seems completely like, I said this to someone today, and it looked like it was just like a dawning realization on their face. Just like, you sell yourself to a market that is dominated by billionaires. That's the basis of our economy. And then you get to pretend and you get to say that that's a free market. When you don't make any decisions, you're not doing anything. You can go choose a different owner. That's the economy. That's the one thing that you've been given, that you can go choose your own owner. And if you don't like this owner, you can go find another owner. No conversation whatsoever about, like, oh, that's not good, that there's a class of owners and there's a class of workers, right? That's not good. That's not a thing that we should have in our society. And this seems completely foreign. And in fact, the more I talk to these people who have like gone through and gotten an economics education and all of this, the harder it is. The harder it is to get them back to just normal, to get them back to just like, no, the whole point is to take care of people, right? That's the whole point. Like, if you're not thinking, how does this economy help the weakest people in our society, then I don't think your education was worth a goddamn. Like, less than zero. It makes it harder. Because every normal person that you talk to, every uneducated person you talk to, is interested in, well, how do I help somebody? How do I help people? I want the people around me to be well taken care of. I think that I think everything should be calm and good for everyone around us. How do we do that? It takes a real education to find out, to learn that there's a different goal. That's what that education's about. And so it takes a long time to even get these guys. And I love challenging them. They'll say things to me like, well, like I'll point out, oh, hey, by the way, there's $650 billion just sitting inert, not being, like, doing nothing. And they'll concede that. They'll be like, yeah, there it is. A whole pile of money not doing anything. Offshore. There it is. They know it exists, right? And they'll ask me, well, how do you expect to tax that away? And I'm like, don't you have a master's in economics, bud? How do you think? How do you think it goes? What do you think? They don't know. Or they do know, but they don't want to say it. You tax it away because the government can tax things away. The government has the power to do that. Government's not a business, right? Government's not a business. It can tax this stuff away. And then their response is, if you do that, those corporations will leave. To which my response is now, bye. Bye. We don't need them. We don't need people who are not interested in making the world a better place. And if they're going to take their ball and go home, goodbye. We don't need them. And think about how dumb that is. Like, imagine Walmart. Because Walmart, instead of making $6 billion, will make $1 billion. Will then leave, sell all their assets, sell everything, disconnect from the society, and accept earnings of $0. Right? And you're telling me no local people are going to be like, oh, wait, Walmart just left? Are you kidding me? Wow, what a huge business opportunity to fill this vacuum and earn $1 billion. Like, the more I think about it, the stupider it gets. And having to explain this kind of stuff to people who have master's degrees in economics really begins to tell me, like, they're not learning much in those buildings. Like, they're not. What are they doing? They're learning supply side economics, which is already a complete fraud. They're learning how to subserviate themselves to institutions. They're learning how to subserviate themselves and how to sell themselves into the billionaire-dominated market and to accept that. Right? That's why they don't know anything about it, because it just needs to. They need to believe in this sort of arcane, strange idea of the hierarchy that, while not acknowledging that the hierarchy is something we manufacture, right? It's, and we can take it down, and we should, because it doesn't exist for the benefit of us. It exists for the benefits of those who are involved in it. I just don't think that, like, I just feel like I'm over all of it. Like, I'm not going to listen to anybody anymore. Like, the establishment doesn't realize how badly that's a fuck up. That for the last 40 years they've been robbing the populace and making a small group of people rich. Like, they really don't understand what can happen here. Especially if they're, like, publishing things saying how shocked they are to see it happen. Like, fuck, dude, like, it's been decades, man. Like, where have you been? Where the fuck you been? And it's, like, for Canadians, it's like, Okay, let's go. Let's do something interesting. And it's like, at least my father, like when he was working on this kind of stuff, he was working on things that mattered, you know? He was working on, like, they were building an interstate highway system, you know? The government was funding an interstate roadway system, a highway system. Like, that's something to be involved in. That's what an enormous project. What an enormous thing. And now we're having to like twist the government's nipple to just like, hey, can you put up some solar panels, plant some trees maybe? You know? Like my father's generation got to build all these enormous projects, these nation building endeavors. All of them were government funded. All of it came out of the government. None of it was privately run. None of it was doing that kind of thing. It was all built because the government was like, yeah, an interstate highway sounds like a good idea. And they were involved in that process. And so you could at least throw yourself behind the belief that you're not wasting your time, that you're actually building something for future generations to enjoy, right? You can throw yourself behind that. We're not doing fuck all. My generation is literally making food for one another. That's our whole job. Like most of most of us are just like shoving goods in each other's faces, right? We're literally just shuffling stuff around waiting for death. That's what it is to be a millennial. That's why we joke about it so much. Cuz it's just pointless and we know it. But there's this whole era. It's been at least 20 years. And it's just like you're making lattes for each other. You're making burgers for each other, right? And it would actually be kind of nice and it would be totally fine, except there's this like gun pointed at your head that's like, oh, you need food and shelter, so you're gonna sell yourself to a billionaire dominated market to get barely enough in order to pay for that food and shelter. And that's your existence until the day you die. And that's what you're going to do. And I'm like standing up being like, okay, but can I do a lot less of it? Can the food and shelter aspect be more guaranteed? Like, do we have to race and spend our whole life on this treadmill to give just goods to one another? Why? Can we slow down? I feel like we should slow down. I feel like we should do less. Because we're not doing anything in the first place. Like there's no... I feel like what's necessary, like there's this thing, there's this artistic there's this thing that happened in post World War One in some of the Eastern European nations, and it was a movement called Dadaism. And Dadaism, like if you think of like the cartoons in a Monty Python sketch, or a lot of punk albums will do a lot of Dadaist sort of things. The idea behind Dadaism is absurdity for absurdism's sake. That the horrors of World War I had been so grotesque that the cultures started to realize that every decision that they had made up until that point must have been wrong. And so they started to take the piss out of their own culture and tear it apart and use it in absurd and strange ways. So you think like the Queen of England, right? Like traditionally presents herself with an air of royalty and regality. Dadaism would like take her face and just like cover a toilet with it, you know, like have her smoking a joint, doing all kinds of strange and weird things. And there are no rules in Dadaism. It's absurdity for absurdism's sake, with the intention of washing the culture away, of acknowledging that everything that we've done up until this moment is wrong. And so we need to start taking the things that we traditionally hold dear and subverting them and making them stupid for the sake of making them stupid. Because for a culture to plunge itself into World War I so readily, it must be a culture that's completely wrong-headed. I feel the exact same way about climate change. even for us to have gotten this close to where we are now, let's say that we managed to pull up on this. We're not going to, but let's say we do. Even to have gotten this close means that we need to cleanse this society, that the society needs to just be awash in absurdism. And in a way, the internet has kind of brought that to head, right? There is no common culture anymore, right? Everybody is in like this niche kind of thing. Like people, you can just be in an intellectual ghetto, right? You can be separated from the rest of your culture and get indoctrinated into this little group of people. That's what's going on with some of these Trump supporters, right? They just exist in their little bubble and they get indoctrinated in it. And there is no common culture, right? And especially because, like, our governments don't do anything anymore. Like, for fuck's sake, like, my dad was alive when they launched rockets and put men on the moon. Like, that's an enormous national project. That's something to galvanize a people. That's something to actually do. We're not doing things like that anymore, right? We're not doing anything like that anymore. Our societies suck. We're like the worst. we just are terrible. Well, it's all like cutthroat and stupid, and everything's breaking apart. And I'm so over it. I'm so sick of it. And so I expect to see something come out of these liberals at this throne speech. But my vote hinges on a basic income, and I feel like anything less than a basic income is just bullshit. Because I'm over it. Redistribute the wealth. Take the money away from the big pile that's just sitting there doing nothing and give it to regular citizens. Do it. Do it. And I can't believe it's taken us this long, and I can't believe we're having to twist and fight this hard in order to do something that's absolutely critically necessary, that we should have done 10 years ago, for God's sakes. Like, you're not going to be able to even begin to have the fight against climate change if your citizens are scrambling around trying to find a place to flip a burger. You know, it's just not going to happen. So that they can pay their fucking rent. Like, are you kidding me? What a joke. What a fucking joke. Alright, I'm gonna go to sleep. Gotta get back to work tomorrow. Hope you all are doing well. Go say hi to your neighbors. Don't forget.